Morning to all. In this video, we are going to discuss about ER model, or we can say it as entity relationship model in database management. This is by ER model or ER diagram. So ER model stands for entity relationship model. It is a high-level data model. This model is used to define the data elements and relationship for a specified system. It develops a conceptual design for the database, also develops a very simple and easy to design view of data. In ER modeling, the database structure is portrayed as a diagram called entity relationship diagram. See this example. Here we have a diagram. So in this diagram, student is called as entity. So under this entity, we have a number of attributes like name, address, ID, phone number, email, etc. Here the student is considered as the entity, and in database table we can say it as it is table name. Other things like name, address, ID and all called as column names. These are the main components of ER diagram. See this diagram. Here the main components of ER diagram are entity, attribute, relation. So under entity we have only one type, that is called as weak entity, and types of attributes are key attribute, composite attribute, multi-valued attribute and derived attribute. So if we take our relationship, we have four types: one to one, one to many, many to one, and many to many. We'll see one by one. The first one is, our first component is entity. What is by entity? Say it is an object like class, person, or place. In here diagram, entity can be represented as rectangles. Okay. If you take your database table, the table is called as entity. For example, employee table, department table. These are all called as entity in ER diagram. So consider an organization as an example. Manager, product, department, and employee, etc. can be taken as entity. What is the weak entity? If one entity depends on another entity, then that entity is called as weak entity. For example, in this case, we have two entities, loan and installment. So installment depends on loan. Based upon the loan or loan type, we can pay our installment. The another component is attribute. What is the attribute? So attribute is a property of entity. It is represented using eclipse symbol. For example, in this diagram, ID, age, contact number, name, etc. can be attributes of your entity student. These are all the types of attributes. The first attribute is key attribute. Here in this diagram, ID is called as key attribute. So based upon the ID or having this ID, we can easily identify the values of the particular entity, that is student. Okay. Key attribute is used to represent main characteristics of an entity. It represents a primary key in your table. The key attribute is represented by an ellipse with the text underlined. This is the first type of attribute, key attribute. The next one is composite attribute. An attribute that composed of many other attributes is known as composite attribute. The composite attribute is represented by an ellipse, and those ellipses are connected with the ellipses. For example, if an attribute, here the attribute is name, composed of many other attributes. Here the many other attributes are first name, middle name, last name. See, if we have the attribute like this, we can say it as it is composite attribute. This is second one. The third one is multi-valued attribute. If your attribute has more than one value, then it is called as multi-valued attribute. For example, in this case, we are taking phone number as the example. Okay. A single person can have more than one phone number. This is example of multi-valued. The next one is derived attribute. If one attribute is derived from another attribute, then it is called as derived attribute. For example, in this case, age is called as derived attribute because we can derive this age from another attribute called as date of birth. These type of attributes are called as derived attribute. The next one is a relationship. The other component is relationship. What is the relationship? See this diagram. Here we have the entity called teacher and student. So what is the relationship between these two entities? That is teacher and student. Teacher teaches student. So teacher can teach some subjects to the student, some concept to the students. Okay. This is how we have to relate your entities. A relationship is used to describe the relation between entities. A diamond symbol is used to represent the relationship. Then type of relationships, as we see in the diagram. Okay, the first one is one-to-one relationship. in this diagram. One female married to one male. This is example of one to one relationship. Another example you can say one student can study one course at a time. So when only one instance of an entity is associated with the relationship, then it is known as one to one relationship. Second one is one to many relationship. See this diagram. One scientist invents many inventions. Yeah. One student may study n number of subjects in the course. For example, maths, English, so another programming subjects. These can be studied by one student. These type of examples we can say for this one to many relationship. The another one is many to one relationship. See this diagram. Many students enroll one course. Okay, for example, a single subject can be studied by n number of students. That is many to one relationship. One student, many students enroll one course. When more than one instance of the entity on the left and only one instance of the entity on the right associates with the relationship, then it is known as many to one relationship. For example, student enrolls only one course, but the course can have many students. Then many to many relationship. Many students can do many projects, or many employees assigned to many projects. We can say this example for many to many relationship. Okay. When more than one instance of the entity on left and more than one instance of an entity on the right associates with the relationship, then it is known as many to many relationship. The next one is mapping cardinality. So what is the cardinality? It is a number, just like a number. So how many times an entity involves or participates with another entity in the relationship, that is called as cardinality. So cardinality means how the entities are arranged to each other, or what is the relationship structure between entities in a relationship set. And DBMS, cardinality represents a number that denotes how many times an entity is participating with another entity in a relationship set. What is the cardinality ratio? Cardinality ratio is also called cardinality mapping, which represents the mapping of one entity set to another entity set in a relationship set. We generally take the example of binary relationship set where two entities are mapped with others. Here we have four types of cardinality mapping: one to one, many to one to many, and many to many. The first one is one to one. So one to one cardinality is represented by 1 is to 1 symbol. In this, there is at most one relationship from one entity to another entity. For example, one student can have sorry, only one student ID, and one student ID can belong to only one student. So example, your ID, or we can say it as registered number. So one registered number can be assigned for one student only. So this type of cardinality is called as one to one or one to one cardinality. Many to one cardinality. See this relationship. In set one, the first entity is participating two times in the many to one cardinality. For example, first entity and second entity is participating one time in set 2. So 1 and 2 is mapped with 1 in the right side, that is inside the set. In the same way, we can take 3 and 4, entity 3 and entity 4. Okay, from the left side is participating one time in the set 2, that is mapped with 3. Okay, this is many to one cardinality. Then one to many cardinalities. In one to many cardinality mapping from set 1, there can be a maximum single set that can make relationship with a single or more than one entity of set. See this diagram. Okay. In a hospital, there can be various compounders. So a relationship between the hospital and compounders can be mapped through one to many cardinality. One hospital may have a number of compounders or doctors. This is one to many cardinality. Then many to many cardinality. In many to many cardinality mapping, there can be one or more than one entity can associate with one or more than one entity of set 2. For example, in college, multiple students can work on a single project, and a single student can also work on multiple projects. So relationship between the project and student can be represented by this many to many cardinality. See this diagram here in the set one. One student, that is first entity is mapped with entity 1 and entity 2 in set 2. In the same way, 2 and 3 are mapped with 2 and 3 in right side. This many to many cardinalities. So in this video, we have discussed about what is ER diagram, what are the components of ER diagram, and what is by a relationship, what is mapping cardinalities, so all those things. Hope you have understood all the concepts very clearly. We will see in the next video. Thank you.